Hello, professors.
Hi. Just give me a second. I was trying to log into the other one, and it's just giving me some trouble to share PowerPoint. I'm using a backup laptop. Okay, just give me a second.
Okay, no problem.
Work, I can use this one.
Recording in progress.
Hi, Professor Justin.
Hi. Yeah.
Do we start our session?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay.
Formally, we start our session. First of all, I would like to thankful our guests, Professor Justin Paul, Professor Sabri Boubaker, and Professor Muhammad Kabir Hassan. I would like to thank that you spare some time from your very busy schedule to conduct this very timely symposium post-COVID era, challenges and opportunities for business researcher managing business. So the session proceeding will be, first of all, our first keynote speaker will give his speech. After that, we have question answer session. Then after that, the second keynote speaker will address, and then third, and at the end, we will conclude this session. So our keynote speakers are the co-hosts. They have the right to mute or give the answer or give the mute unmute any participant. So first of all, I would like to introduce our first resource person, Professor Justin Paul. Dr. Justin Paul serves as editor-in-chief of A-ranked International Journal of Consumer Studies and as an associate editor of Journal of Business Research, European Management Journal, and Journal of Strategic Marketing. He is former faculty member with the University of Washington. Currently, he is serving as a full professor of PhD and MBA programs at University of Pareto, USA. He holds 3 honorary titles as Distinguished Professor with 3 reputed universities, including Indian Institute of Management and Symposium Institute of Business and Management. He is known as co-author of books such as Business Environment, 4th edition, International Marketing, Services Marketing, Export Import Management, 2nd edition, Management of Banking and Financial Services by McGraw-Hill, Oxford University Press, and Pearson, respectively. Professor Paul introduced the Mestige model and Meyer for brand management, CPP model for internationalization, scope framework for small firms, and 7P framework for international marketing. His articles have been downloaded over 800,000 times during the last 6 years. He is an author of over 110 research papers which are published in impact factor journals, including over 70 papers are in IR journals. He has also served as an associate professor at Nagano University, Japan, and department chair at Indian Institute of Management. In addition, he has taught full courses at Aarhus University, Denmark, Grenoble Ecole Lidi Management, and University of Brussels, France, University of Lithuania, Warsaw, Poland, and has been visiting professor at University of Chicago, Vienna University, Austria, Fudan, and University of International Business and Economics in China, UAB in Barcelona and Madrid. Furthermore, he has published 3 best-selling case studies with Abbey and Harvard. He has visited over 60 countries as a visiting professor or speaker. He is a frequent traveler. This is the brief profile of Professor Justin. Now this session is Professor with you, and you can share your slide, your screen, and then we can at the end we will be having question answer session.
Okay, thank you very much for this invitation. Am I audible to you?
Yep.
Okay, let me try to share my PPT. I'll try on the other one also, because this one sometimes it gives trouble. Okay, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you are audible.
Thank you for this invitation. And I will not take much of your time because I see that there are only 17 people and I would try to make it interactive because I like a more interactive session rather than one-way session. One-way sessions are not very effective based on my experience when we conduct webinars. Webinars are more useful when there are questions and answers. So I'll talk about 15 or 20 minutes and then see in case if there are questions from your side, I would be happy to answer. I was expecting much larger audience, so it's a small audience, so that means it is very convenient to have an interactive session. So we all know that the COVID-19 has created challenges and opportunities. There are more challenges and opportunities, and these challenges actually sometimes it is difficult for us to understand what to do because of this crisis. And this crisis, we expect that crisis will be over in about 3 months or 4 months time and everything is likely to be normal. But at the same time, there are also another school of thought where some thinkers, some thought leaders believe that there could be a third wave of COVID-19, which can also create a problem. So, in essence, in nutshell, we all know that a company increases its likelihood of survival when it grows and achieves competitiveness. Yes, this is the reality. Competitiveness is required. Companies need to achieve global competitiveness to survive and succeed. Because if they don't have global competitiveness in the 21st century, survival is difficult, success is difficult. Global economy is expected to shrink, or it is already has shrunk. And if you look at the American scenario, millions have filed for unemployment benefits in America. The same situation. Many people have filed for unemployment benefits in different other countries because many people lost their jobs, especially in people working in small companies. They have lost their jobs. And many employers, when they found it difficult to survive and succeed, they have laid off people. They have simply terminated their employees. Labor-intensive industries are facing more challenges. This is a reality. Labor-intensive industries are actually facing a lot of challenges. Many labor-intensive industries, because of social distancing, because of COVID-19 guidelines, they have tough time to do their businesses. Capital-intensive industries and digital-based industries, they still survive and succeed. They have more opportunities. On the other hand, labor-intensive industries, they have tough time. COVID-19 has made companies search for opportunities necessary in order to survive. There have been setback on transactions taking place in the recent months. Yes. We know that there have been a lot of problems. And if you look at small and medium enterprises, SMEs, small and medium enterprises, they face survival threats and challenges because of COVID-19. Many small and medium enterprises have shut down their operations because of lack of capital. Some of them have even shut down business operations in different countries, across the countries, wherever they operate. It doesn't matter if you are a small company Many of them have shut down their businesses, and it's a reality, and it's a serious problem. Companies have to rethink their strategies to survive and succeed in the post-COVID-19 time. And in my presentation, I would like to demonstrate how the P framework can be used by companies to rewrite their plan, rewrite and restructure their business plan. Example, social distancing and impact. This leads to increasing importance for online transactions. This implies that the companies focusing on online business will be winners because most customers prefer online purchase these days. Online businesses, digital businesses is very important. For example, you're not doing an online business if you are a business owner. If you have been relying upon traditional way of generating income, that is not going to work in the days to come. So you have to, or you must, get into online businesses. It's important. Otherwise, your success, your survival can be a problem. Almost all businesses in travel and tourism sector will incur huge loss next 2 years. This includes travel agencies, monuments, restaurants, and hotels located in tourist locations. For example, I live in a tourist location. Around my building, there are many beaches. And there are a lot of star hotels in my location. However, I noticed that last 1 year or more than a year, they have been empty. They have no business. They are in trouble. Because there are no tourists, there are no business visitors. It's a serious problem. And many restaurants in my area, in my town, they have closed down permanently after 2 months lockdown time. Initial lockdown when COVID-19 turned out to be a serious problem. There were initial lockdown everywhere, and this initial lockdown was for 2 months, and many cafes, many restaurants, many offices, they were all closed. And some of them did not open back at all. For example, Hard Rock Cafe. Hard Rock Cafe is a very well-known restaurant cum bar in America. And there's a Hard Rock Cafe within walking distance from my house. And Hard Rock Cafe was closed for 2 months during lockdown. They did open again after lockdown. There are so many enterprises that way. Because of lockdown, they could not do business and they decided to shut down their business. Everywhere in all countries you will find this kind of problems. Exclusive distribution is there. What I would like to focus is with regard to marketing. Many companies used to have exclusive distribution strategy instead of intensive distribution. So I would say that exclusive distribution is dead because of pandemic. And now companies need to think about intensive or selective distribution channel strategy. And customers would not prefer to pay for premium brands for those saving strategy. This is another thing, because customers want to save money now, and brand managers will have tough time in the next 2 years. Brand managers will have tough time. For another example, I tell you, newspapers, media advertisers, they have been relying upon income from advertisement. They will have tough time. Because majority of the companies, they do not want to spend money for the advertisements. And artificial intelligence will get more importance. Some robots, chatbots, all those will get more importance. Our internet system will get more importance too. World will be divided into 2 diplomatic teams under US and China. This is another fact. India will be with US and Pakistan will be with China. Yeah, hourly wage system. Historically, we all get monthly salary, but pandemic has resulted into a situation where many companies in the days to come will think about and will implement hourly wage rate system. This is going to be a reality. Some new challenges. Hospitality industries are badly hit and will face serious problems during the next 2 years. Hotels, restaurants, airlines, they will run short of business. Movie theaters will not get people to go inside because some people are scared. Education institutions also face challenge because of social distancing guidelines. Restaurant, I would like to share a case study. It's a Chinese restaurant in my area, and this Chinese restaurant is run by a Chinese lady who migrated from China to America. And I live in America, as you know, and this Chinese restaurant, the Chinese lady, she came to America as a Chinese cook, and after working as a cook for 10 years, she started her own Chinese restaurant. And she did not own the building. She was leasing the building to run the restaurant. Because of the pandemic, COVID pandemic, her restaurant was closed and she was running short of business. She cannot pay rent, and as a result, her landlord terminated the agreement because she was unable to pay rent because she was not getting customers because of COVID pandemic, and she could not pay the rent, and her landlord decided to terminate the agreement. Many hotels have terminated their employees too. And even universities these days are not hiring many people as permanent professors. They have switched into kind of part-time hiring. So what I have today is a 7P framework for business plan. Traditionally, we prepare business plan when you teach in a business course. But today I would like to share with you a 7P framework for preparing a new business plan taking into account COVID-19 pandemic and COVID-19 crisis to emerge out of this crisis. Sabri, you have a small company, and this is published as an article in Journal of Strategic Marketing. If you want, you can download this from Journal of Strategic Marketing. Otherwise, it's also available on my website, drjustinpaul.com, to download. Otherwise, you can find this on the search page. You can follow me on the search page, Justin Paul, and contact me on the search page. I can send you this article for reading. 7P framework. This is introduced by me and Eric Maas from University of North Texas, joining Indiana University now. And this framework is all about different P constructs. Performance. Performance is a function of other P's. Performance is a function of potential, path, process, space, pattern, problems. And performance is, for example, a company needs to target performance, and this performance is a function of, in order to achieve high performance, companies need to analyze potential, path, process and pace, pattern and problems. What is the market potential in different markets, different states, different regions, different countries? And how do it grow? How to achieve growth? Path, the growth path. It can be with financing from the bank, or it can be with venture capital financing. It can be anything like that, growth path, or it can be with strategic alliance. But you need to plan this in advance using these peak constructs so that you can survive and you can overcome the challenges arising from pandemic. And when you prepare a business plan, you should look into processes that you can follow, and you can also look at pace of doing business. Pace is nothing but the speed of doing business. What speed you will run your business. And pattern. Pattern refers to your product portfolio and your destinations. What markets, what countries you will go, and what products you will do business. Whether you will have product lines or single product or expand into many product lines, all those are part of pattern. And the destination diversification. Problems need to be taken into account because problems are part and parcel of business. So you should ideally look at performance as a function of these 6 P constructs, and problems need to be taken into account because there are 2 types of problems: anticipated problem and unanticipated problem. In other words, I can say expected problem and an unexpected problem. So COVID-19 is an unexpected problem. So my message or my point is that when you want to succeed in business, you have to prepare a business plan in advance, taking into account all these key constructs, and aim for a greater performance. And when you do that business plan preparation, you have to expect or you have to anticipate that you might incur into problems, and the problems comes on your way. How do you overcome these problems? This is important. And you have to look at this comprehensively, holistically, and you have to try to solve these problems. So this is critical and this is possible, and it's possible to manage this strategically and diplomatically, provided you analyze all these P constructs in a holistic way and in a comprehensive way. This is what I have to convey today, and I see that this is a very, very small audience. Normally I get at least 100 people when I have webinars. So I would like to thank you very much for this invitation, and if you have any question, I can answer.
Dear Professor Justin, thank you very much for your time and nice thoughts, sharing your nice thoughts and insights. If any of the audience has question, they can raise the hand, then our guest will give the answer of questions from the audience. Hello, Professor Justin. There is a participant, Mr. Kabir Hassan. He has a question. Can you unmute him?
Hello.
Kabir Hassan, can you unmute yourself?
Are you asking me?
Hello?
Yeah.
I think maybe I should use the other one.
Hello?
Hello, Kabir Hassan, can you listen us?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What's your question?
Sir, my question is that how newly hotels and companies can survive their company or airlines, which was recently launched in the market, like Air Sial in Pakistan. In pandemic.
My solution, like the framework that I shared today, this is useful for all kind of companies. So it's like building a house. When you build a house, you need to have a plan. So this plan is very critical. Suppose you try to build an apartment or you try to build your own house, independent house, without a plan and without a base. If there is an earthquake, your house will collapse. The same way when you try to do a business, if you run a very concrete and comprehensive business plan like the one I suggested, your business will not succeed in long run. So your business will succeed in long run only if you have a comprehensive and holistic business plan. It's important, it's critical. And such an approach will help you to achieve success, tremendous success. Okay.
Thank you very much, dear Professor. I think there is no more question by our audience, and it's, I think, in time, and we are not expecting this the number of very limited number of audience, because we received a lot of confirmation to participate in this webinar. Anyways, I would like to thank you for your time, and hopefully it will be very insightful for the participants specific to post-COVID era.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, please. Hi, Professor Sabri. Hi, Professor Sabri, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Thank you. Hi, nice to meet you. Once again online, yeah, very good.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Sabri, for your time from your very busy schedule. And you're the second keynote speaker. You will be having your talk. After your talk, we are expecting some question answer from audience. So before going to formal start, I would like to introduce Professor Sabri. Dr. Sabri Boubaker is a professor of finance at EM Normandy Business School, Paris, and research fellow at Institut de Recherche, Gaston University of Paris. Professor Sabri holds a PhD in finance from University of Paris in 2006, and he was nominated for the IFA Best Thesis Award, and he also obtained HRD degree, habilitation for supervising doctoral research in 2010 from the same university. He has served as a visiting professor, researcher in many universities in UK, Canada, France, Vietnam, India, and Tunisia. Professor Sabri has extensively published in top-tier journals, and he has published over 100 academic papers in international refereed journals, including Journal of Corporate Finance, Journal of Banking Finance, Journal of International Money and Finance, Financial Management, Journal of Business Ethics, British Journal of Management, Journal of Economic Dynamics and Control, Journal of Financial Research, International Review of Financial Analysis, European Financial Management Journal, Review of Quantitative Accounting and Finance, and Journal of International Financial Markets, Institution and Money. Professor Sabri has also edited 11 books specific to corporate finance, corporate governance, board of directors, and corporate social responsibility with the top publishers: Emerald Group of Publishing, Springer, World Scientific Publishing, Palgrave Macmillan, Elsevier, Hems International Publishing, Edward Elgar, and he has edited many special issues of top-ranked journals. He serves on the editorial board of many accounting and finance academic journals as subject or associate editor, like British Journal of Management, Journal of International Financial Markets, Institutions and Money, Emerging Markets Review, Economic Modeling, Finance Research Letters, Business Ethics, as European Review. He is also editor-in-chief of International Journal of Financial Studies and also editor of the French Review of Corporate Governance. Furthermore, Professor Sabri has served as a keynote speaker in many conferences and has involved in organizing founder, chair, and member of scientific committee of more than 30 conferences during the recent years. He is the co-founder and co-chair of annual Paris Financial Management Conference since 2013 to date, and more than 500 submissions took place over the years, and each year. He is also founder and co-chair of Vietnam Symposium in 2016 to date, and the annual meeting of International Society for the Advancement of Financial Economics. He is also the president of International Society for the Advancement of Financial Economics. This is the brief introduction of Professor Sabri. And now, Professor, the session is over to you, and you can share your screen. And at the end, we will be having question and answer session. Thank you very much for your valuable time.
Thank you very much, Imran. Thank you for inviting me for this webinar. Is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yes, you are host. You can, you have right to share your screen.
Okay, just 1 second to make sure that you see my slides. Do you see the slides now?
Yes, your screen is visible, and now, yeah, slides are.
Okay. Do you see that the slides are changing now? Imran?
Yep.
Do you see that the slides are changing or not?
Yeah, it's changing. It's changing.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So today I will talk about COVID-19, and I will talk about 3 important things. First of all, responses of government to this COVID, the recovery, and in particular, what I will focus on by the end is the resiliency of companies. Which companies have been able to be resilient to this unprecedented crisis worldwide? Okay, and I will make, let's say, a review of the recent literature published in 2021 that shows what are the key characteristics of the companies that have been able to be resilient to this crisis. First of all, what is this virus? What do we know about it? This virus is a new variety of coronavirus that first emerged in China in 2019. This is an ongoing pandemic. We don't know when it will end. You know, there are a lot of variants of this virus. Many companies are trying to make vaccines. We are not sure which vaccines are efficient or not. If you are following all what is being said by the news regarding a new variant, for example, a company like CureVac has announced recently an efficiency as low as 47%, and it has attributed this to the large number of variety of the virus. A company like Pfizer or Moderna or Novavax have better performance, but maybe this high performance of efficacy of the virus is due to the fact that when they have made their study, it was only on one variety of virus. So we are not sure whether these vaccines will be efficient for the long run, whether they can tackle these new kind of viruses or not. So I think we are in the middle of the tunnel, and the light by the end of the tunnel is not just here. So the situation will not be that easy. These are some figures as of May 15, but unfortunately the figures are more dramatic now, and the virus is more, let's say, taking more ground in many countries. COVID cases are roughly plus 162 million cases, plus 3,000 300,000 death cases. New cases are roughly more than 500,000 per day worldwide. Many countries are suffering more than others. I will not go to these details, but you know, and you are following better than me, the media. Is it a black swan phenomena, what we are observing with the COVID? It does not seem like that. Honestly, it does not seem like that. And why? Because in the past, we had some events similar to this one. 1918, the influenza pandemic, known as the Spanish flu. It spanned from February 1918 to April 1920. 500 million people were infected. It was 1/3 of the world population at that time. Okay, and the death toll was about 11 million, 17 million cases. Okay, more recently we have the SARS in 2003, but many other diseases also: AIDS, avian flu, MERS, Ebola, yellow fever, Zika. So, and there is one study made by the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board that has shown that in the period between 2011 and 2018, more than 1,480 pandemic events in 172. Only one reached the stage of pandemic, but many have shaken the world. So in this case, look to this, let's say, figure around the world. And as you can see, the world is as acute risk, okay, for devastating crisis due to epidemics or pandemics. As you can see, many cases around the world, and we are really in a situation when we need to be very careful about human health and the impact on crisis. So as you can see, many cases worldwide. At the beginning, when the World Health Organization has declared the outbreak of COVID-19 as a global pandemic, is what the shock, and the stock market collapsed all over the world. Almost level 1 market-wide circuit breakers based on 7% drop of the stock market, and it has been actioned in many countries, okay, and it has been actioned and triggered 4 times in March 2020 in the US stock market to prevent larger crashes. During that period, also many stock markets have, let's say, banned for a period short selling, and this mechanism was only once in 1997 triggered since its implementation in 1988. The Dow Jones Industrial Index has dropped by 33% on March 20. Standard & Poor's has dropped by 29%. The DGAA index had on March 16 12.93% index, 9.99% drop, and these are extremely important figures of drops. So what we can see, this shock was global, first thing, okay. It has affected all countries. The UK also with 24.8% drop in the FTSE 100. The French case also with 32.36% drop of the CAC 40. So it was a compression. It was a big compression. And you can see here how important was the stock market drop. For example, the Standard & Poor's peaked on February 19 at 3,386 points. February 21, several municipalities in Italy has declared and has entered in a lockdown. So it was the index was at 3,337. 3 days later, which means after the weekend on Monday, the stock market declaration has accelerated. On March 18, President Trump signed the second coronavirus emergent aid package. This is what they call it. And the stock market at that moment was 3,298 points. And the start of this was the beginning of an aggressive fiscal and monetary policy response to this pandemic to try to save the economy. February, March 2021, the Standard and Poor's peaked again, okay, to 42.32. This was among other due to beginning of the recovery of the economy and to some industries in particular, some industries that are linked to the recovery of the economy. Okay, so this was a global shock. I will not go to the details on a country by country basis, but as you can see, the drop was almost uniform around the world between 20% and 40 and 45%. Okay, some countries have even reached more than that. So if we compare the global financial crisis to the COVID crisis, okay, what we can say, okay, the global financial crisis was in between 2008, 2009, it has affected mainly large firms, whereas the COVID crisis affected mainly small firms that are unable to, let's say, be resilient and to cope with the new environment. The problem of the financial crisis was due to mismanagement. The problem here is due to health issues. So it is beyond the scope of the management of companies. Global financial crisis, the blame was on financial industries. Here, no particular industry to blame. And the solution to the global financial crisis was bailouts to many financial institutions, in particular in the US. In the financial crisis, it was various monetary, fiscal, and financial responses. So among the responses, and I will be quickly on this, first of all, there are some measures that have been taken almost by all countries around the world. Physical distancing, restriction on free movement. Even up to now, in many countries, you have a restriction to movement. Yesterday, I was following the media in Tunisia. So many, let's say, localities and big cities in Tunisia are locked down to the third and fourth wave surge of the coronavirus crisis. Mass gathering, cancellation, closure of public spaces, closure of educational institutions, shutting down of large parts of the economy, stay at home recommendation, whether it is, let's say, on voluntary basis, on compulsory basis, lockdowns, use of protective markers, teleworking. So all these are measures among many others that have been taken all around the world. What has also been done as a response is also tax responses, and tax responses were taken by many countries around the world, in Europe, in the US, in Canada, and in many emerging markets also. So what has been happening in this case? So fiscal responses vary from one country to another. Basically, this is the spirit of these fiscal measures: waiving or deferring employer and self-employed social security contribution. So giving, let's say, a possibility, a breadth possibility to companies, waiving payroll-related taxes, reduce labor costs due to shutdown by, let's say, paying part of the salary of the employer of many companies. And the basic objective and the main objective was to avoid business closure, especially in hard-hit industries due to lockdown. Also, many countries have been providing tax concessions for health employees. So for example, waiver of taxes on overtime income, especially for those working in the health industry, targeting tax allowance, tax-based reduction, tax deferred, and so on. And also many possibilities for different industries to grant extra time to deal with tax issues, because many companies have been overwhelmed with many issues. So government has allowed them to have more time to deal with tax issues. Policy responses, also other tax responses, include deferring payment of VAT in countries when you have VAT, okay, speeding up refund of excess input VAT in case when the company needs to get its VAT back from the government, simplifying procedures for claiming relief from VAT, deferring or adjusting or even waiving the required advance payment of business income taxes, deferring taxes that do not depend on immediate economic cycle, increasing the generosity of loss carry forward provision for a longer period. So these are examples of measures that have been taken worldwide. Let's see now one particular cases, okay? And you can here see with me how important are these fiscal measures, and we will see together how these measures have been important also as a relief. So for example, in France, there have been 4 budget law amendments during the period March-November 2020. First of all, fiscal envelope of about 180 billion euro, which is almost 8% of the GDP of France, which is a huge amount of money. This amount of money has been dedicated to save the economy. And a package also of public guarantee of more than 327 billion euro, almost 15% of the GDP, including guarantee for bank loans and credit reinsurance schemes, has been actually made to the economy. And this is basically to save the economy and to avoid a large bankruptcy of many companies, and to avoid also social unrest. What are the key financial fiscal support measures? Basically, streamlining and boosting health insurance for the sick and their caregiver, increasing spending on health supplies. A lot of investment and money has been spent on health issues, postponement of social security and tax payment for firms, and accelerated the refunding of tax credit such as VAT and others. This is not the only measure. Many other measures, including the support for wage of workers under the short-term work scheme. So, for example, if you own a restaurant and you have some employees in the restaurant and you have been forced to lock down, so 80% of the salary of these employees have been paid by the government. Direct financial support for affected micro-enterprises, direct financial support for liberal professionals, professions, independent workers, postponement of rent and utility payment, for example, electricity, water, and so on, facilitating granting of exceptional bonuses, for example, by allowing exemption for social security contribution during the pandemic period, and also different other support measures, especially for hard-hit sectors, including, for example, the airline industry, and also giving incentive, for example, to buy greener vehicles. So that is a way to make the economy moving. These are not the only measure, but some other measures have been enacted in the budget of 2021. For example, some measures have been announced in September 2020 to support the economy, but has been enacted by the end of the year, including about 100 billion euro over 2 years to ensure the ecological transformation of the economy, the increase of the competitiveness of local firms, and in particular, supporting social and territorial cohesion to avoid any social unrest. These are mainly, let's say, the fiscal and measures that are made in Europe at the country level, but there are various other measures that have been made at the European level. And the aim of this measure was to support liquidity and funding conditions for households, businesses, and banks, okay? So to avoid situation when we have, let's say, liquidity shortages, and to help also to preserve and smooth provision of credit to the real economy, to allow the economy to continue to function, and to keep in particular inflation within targeted level, which was one of the main measures. The first, let's say, list of measures, or the first measures were on the onset of the pandemic. It was as early as March 12th, 2020. So the first measure was to conduct temporarily additional long-term financing operations to provide immediate liquidity support to the euro area financial system by providing liquidity at favorable terms until June 2020, but this has been extended later on to apply considerably more favorable terms during the period between June 2020 and June 2021, supporting banks to continue lending money to the economy, and in particular to small and medium-sized enterprise, and also to keep the interest rates of all these operations at 25 basis points below the average rate. So to make money available, but to make money not that much expensive. Some among the measures, among the monetary and macro financial measures, it has also the European Central Bank has decided to increase the maximum total amount of counterparties can borrow, okay, and to be able to have it up to 50% of their stock of eligible loans, to ease collateral measures. This was very, very important so that counterparties continue to be able to make full use of their funding support, and to keep also the key ECB, European Central Bank interest rate unchanged. And the objective was basically to ensure that the inflation outlook will continue to be close but below 2%. And these measures are not the only measures. Many others have been also added in different other periods during the COVID. These measures are not taken only at the European level, but also at the country level. So, for example, in France, the short selling of stocks has been banned from March 17, 2020 up to May 18, 2020. Several decisions has been taken during that period, but the objective was to ban short selling because, as you know, short selling can rush the collapse of many companies. Credit mediation also and supporting renegotiation of loans, in particular for small and medium enterprise. And also among the decisions that has been taken in France is to reduce the counter-cyclical bank capital buffer to 0%. Okay, if we consider the case of the United States, the measures were also extremely important. I will not go into details, but on March 27th, 2021, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economy Security Act, what we call the CARES Act. Okay, it has been enacted, 2.3 trillion US dollar, almost 11% of the GDP. And basically this amount of money has been dedicated to expand unemployment benefit, expand unemployment benefit, give money for the most vulnerable. It was like copter money here, prevent corporate bankruptcy by providing loans and guarantees, in particular to, let's say, national security sensitive industry, airline industries, help small businesses that retain employee by giving, for example, administrative loans, and also helping a hospital. Sorry, this date, it is March 27, 2020, not 2021. August 8, 2020, new decision has been taken. So extra unemployment benefits, student loan payment relief, deferring collection of employee social security, payroll taxes, helping renter and homeowners avoid eviction and foreclosure. So basically, different measures in forms of fiscal packages and in the form of copter money have been used here to help the economy continue. By the end of 2020, another coronavirus relief plan has been made of $868 billion, almost 4.1% of the US GDP. Basically, this was direct stimulus payment to individual resources for vaccine testing and tracing, and more recently, an American rescue plan by the Biden government costs $1,844 billion, and it was almost 8.8% of the GDP, and basically it has been dedicated to direct aid to state and local government, direct stimulus payment to eligible individual, and to extend unemployment benefits programs. The US also has taken, similar to the European Union, similar measures, and these measures have been taken by the Federal Reserve, and basically these measures are keeping a near zero interest rate policy. So basically the main idea is that until labor market condition will reach level consistent with the assessment and inflation has risen to 2%. So in this case, the Federal Reserve will continue by having near zero interest rates. Also, the Federal Reserve has decided to support financial market functioning by allowing security purchases, which is one way of non-conventional monetary policy, lending to security firms, backstopping money market mutual funds, expanding the scope of repurchasing agreement, etc. They have also encouraged banks to lend by having direct lending to banks and temporarily relaxing several regulatory requirements. The important role of the Federal Reserve during this crisis was to support corporations and businesses, to support also households and customers, to support state and mutual and municipal borrowing, and it was also the Federal Reserve, the Fed, has been cautioning US monetary markets from international pressure by using international swap lines to protect the US money markets. These are some additional measures. For example, the Federal Reserve cut rates from 1.5% to 1% on March 3rd, 2020, and from 1% to 0% on March 15. The Fed has announced, the New York Fed has announced, for example, more than $1 trillion for repurchase agreement market to make sure that there is enough liquidity in the market. The Fed agrees also to purchase Treasury and agency mortgages-backed securities for more than $700 billion. So these are some of the measures that have been taken, okay? But what you should keep in mind is here that the Fed has considered there is no limit on quantitative easing until the economy recovers. Okay, so the recoveries, and let's see how many companies has recovered. This is from a study published in GFE. What you can see here is that the stock market has reacted positively to social distancing. So, for example, when you can see here, okay, lockdown, here the dependent variable in this paper in particular is weekly market return. As you can see here, lockdown has affected positively weekly market return. Fiscal stimulus has affected also positively. Corporate debt repurchase has affected positively weekly return. What does this mean? This means that lockdown measure generate economic losses in the short run. So all individuals and companies are aware of this, but the market places a positive value on the long run benefits of reducing the spread of the virus, the spread of this disease. The market considers that fiscal stimulus policy and national authority purchasing debt in response of the pandemic is a sign of recovery because this will give more liquidity to the market. As you can see here, different countries, okay, and you can see here that starting from, let's say, the third week or the third and fourth week of March, many economies have started to recover. Of course, they are not at the level of the pre-COVID crisis, but they have started recovering due to different measures and different fiscal, monetary, and financial packages. So this figure plots the cumulative stock market returns from January 17 to May 22nd, and all markets fell between 20 and 40% from their 2020 high to their 2020 low, and this large variation has lately been mitigated, or let's say reduced, after these fiscal measure. Which other companies have been able to be resilient? Many studies have shown that companies that have, let's say, better CSR and environmental policies have been more resilient during this financial crisis. So CSR-oriented firms, those who have better relationship with their customer, with their employees, have been better able to resist to this crisis. And high CSR level have been shown to be associated with employee well-being, with the safety of the products, and with the fulfillment of informational agreement with suppliers, and with protecting environment. So this means that there are strong ties. There are strong ties with the stakeholders, with high quality workers, which was something necessary to maintain stable supply chains, in particular with customers during difficult times. So if there is trust due to CSR between customers and companies, between suppliers and company, these companies with such kind of trust have been more resilient. So CSR was one of the main reasons that helped companies maintain immunities and strengthen their relationship with their stakeholders. Another studies was conducted by Boubaker K and other authors, and it has been published late 2020. They have shown also similar relationship. They have shown that companies that have invested a lot pre-crisis, pre-COVID crisis in environmental and social issues have exhibited lower volatility during the financial crisis. And they have shown two mechanisms. The first one is customer loyalty, and the second one is investor loyalty. So what is this basically? COVID-19 shocks affect customer demand, and customer loyalty for companies that are CSR oriented benefit these companies and allow these firms to have higher stock prices and to be more resilient. Investor loyalty also, companies that have close relationship with their investors, and investors who have also environmental and social preferences, they have decided, and they decide to pay more for firms with higher environmental and social rating, CSR-oriented firms, making these companies less, let's say, less vulnerable to the pandemic. If you can see here, other factors that have affected the resiliency and that have shaped the resiliency and have helped companies to be more resilient is cash holding. So firms with more cash holding, what you can see here in yellow is companies with high cash holding, companies that have stockpiled cash. And you can see these companies have better performance, okay? These companies have better performance. So they are in yellow. Companies that are in green are companies that have invested in corporate social responsibility, either in terms of environmental issue or in social issue. These companies have also been able to have been immune. However, companies with high leverage, these companies have made large, let's say, have seen large drop in their stock prices. So this means that leverage has increased the fall in a precipitous manner in the post-COVID period. Okay, so this means that the market and investor has considered that leverage is a risk, and adding and these companies are risky, and the COVID is another layer of risk. This is another study that shows the difference in terms of resiliency between firms that are highly leveraged and firms that have more cash. And as you can see here is that firms with higher cash has a better performance, cumulative abnormal returns following the announcement of the COVID compared to firms that are highly leveraged, that have experienced a decrease. So firms with high leverage are not as resilient as those with more cash. This is another study that studies the role of trading with China. Okay, what was the effect of trading with China? Because many companies are trading with China, are buying spare parts or component of many of their products from China. At the beginning of the COVID crisis, the supply chain were cut or was disturbed. So as you can see, during the outbreak of the crisis, this means that during the period January 20, February 20, at the beginning, internationally oriented firms, especially those who are exposed to trade with China, have underperformed. So as you can see here, it was not the case before January 20, and this was not the case before February 21. So as the virus spread to Europe and the US, corporate debt and cash holding emerging as important value driver. Of course, corporate debt destroying value, cash holding actually creating value. And as you can see, during the period of the outbreak of the crisis, investors has considered that the reduced or the disturbance in the supply was one serious reason that can affect actually companies. If you can see here which industries were more resilient, so this study shows that some industries were resilient more others. Of course, those that have benefited from the lockdown, including telecom services, software services, food and staples retailing, tech, hardware, semiconductor, all these firms have benefited from the crisis because all these firms have actually taken advantage due to the lockdown and working and distance working. Also, pharma and biotech industry have been improved because there have been larger and unprecedented demand on their products. What is the role of financial flexibility? Okay, because financially flexible firms have been shown to be better performing during the financial crisis. So if you can see here, you see here high flexible firms, EW. So these high flexible firms have been better performers than all sample firms, and low flexibility firms have been less well performing. So as you can see, firms with high flexibility within any given industry experience a short price drop that is 26% or 9.7% points lower than those with low financial flexibility. Okay, so as you can see, the drop is less important. So all companies have suffered from the crisis, but those with high financial flexibilities have suffered less compared to others. So as you can see here, what was important for the resiliency of companies was stockpiling cash, which is one important reason because cash is used usually for precautionary motive, adopting CSR-oriented firms, being financially flexible, but also one other important reason is having good corporate governance practices. So in this study in particular, the results show that corporate governance could influence market perception of a corporation resilience during the COVID. So companies here that have many anti-takeover devices that have been implemented. So companies that are isolated from the market for corporate control means company with more chances of having agency costs. These companies have, let's say, not well performed compared to others. So in response of the COVID-19, market have penalized firms with more entrenched executives that have voted different anti-takeover measures. The role of the global supply, as you can see also here, so companies that have global supply exposure or customer supply exposure have been hardly hit during the beginning of the financial crisis and have been less resilient. So how corporation, so suppliers exposure measures here, the extent to which a firm is exposed to COVID-19 in countries through its supplier and customers exposure was how these companies are exposed to COVID-19 in countries through their customers. So what you can see here is that these companies that are exposed either from a supply side or from a customer side are more affected by COVID-19 and have been more likely to suffer from on the market because these companies have experienced a disruption to production and sales more than other firms. IGC rating was also another factor. So companies that have been better rated before the financial crisis have been more resilient. So as you can see here, AAA firms have better done compared to BBB firms, and BBB firms have better than those that have not reached the investment grade. So basically, the results show that investors are more concerned about low-ranked firms or low-rated firms compared to others during the crisis. Okay, what would be life after coronavirus? What comes next? Okay, is the future coming out of the tunnel? This is very difficult to answer. The situation is not clear. Nowadays, some countries are feeling better. Some other countries are, let's say, having more difficulties. There are new variants. There are the variant from Peru, from Brazil, from India, different other. The one from South Africa, it is so far unclear, and it is unclear how really efficient the vaccines, any kind of vaccine now, whether it is Sinovac from China or whether it is Pfizer one, Moderna, BioNTech, whatever, it is unclear how we will be protected using these how to say measure and how the economy will be shaped in the future. So greater progress with vaccination, but needs time, and a new virus variant that evade vaccine can also lead to a higher uncertainty. There are many emerging new vaccines also. Many new companies are trying to get the approval by the European at the European level, in the US, to get the approval, but still I think it is a little bit difficult, and this may be time consuming to get rid of the tunnel. The situation is a multi-speed and complete recovery with differences across countries and across industry. Some countries are now in the middle of the crisis with a huge surge of the number of cases. Government continue piling up debt to shelter their economy from the crisis. Unprecedented quantitative easing, huge stimulus packages, national debts reached unprecedented level worldwide since the Second World War. For example, if you consider the French case, the amount of the debt, it has reached more than 120% of the GDP, which is unprecedented amount, $3.3 trillion. Billions of dollars have been also paid for payrolls and to avoid bankruptcy and mass unemployment. Trillions have been dedicated to stimulus of the economy around the world. But the more important question, who will pay this? Who will pay this? What will happen when we are, let's say, out of the tunnel, when we start seeing the light? We are afraid of high growth that will be coupled with, now the situation is high growth coupled with low inflation is needed, but we are afraid of inflation, the threat of inflation is there, and current policies are not tailored to get out of the crisis, but they are tailored only to, let's say, recover from the crisis, which are two different policies. So what has been implemented in France or in Europe or by Trump government, or what is being now implemented by Biden government, is not intended to make sure and to ensure growth for the long run, but is only to get, let's say, out of this crisis and to try to save the economy and save micro, small, and medium enterprise. The IMF expected a growth of 5.1% in the United States and 4.3% in Europe. These are not important figures, let's say, in terms of magnitude, if we consider the magnitude of the drops last year. So the question is this really enough following a deep recession? Are these growth rates are important? This is a real question. This is my upcoming edited book on financial transformation beyond the COVID health crisis, when we answer some of these questions here. Thank you very much for your attention, and please feel free to ask me any question you may have. Amram is for you.
Thank
Yes.
you, Sabri. Good to see you.
Hi, Kabir.
This is Kabir.
Yeah. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you on the screen.
Occasions to meet in person in the near future.
Yeah.
Sabri,
Can you, Sabri, can you check your chat box? I sent a message to you.
Yes, please. I will check.
So, Imran, we need to get started.
yes, Professor Sabri, thank you very much for your wonderful session and for your time. It was outstanding and very informative talk. And I think we have limited participants this time because it's dinner time in Pakistan, and most of the people, I think, they are busy in their dinner. So we continue our session. Our third expert is Professor Muhammad Kabir Hassan. So I would like to introduce Professor Kabir Hassan. Professor Sabri, can you stop sharing your screen?
Sure, I will do it.
Yeah. Yes. So do we introduce Professor Kabir? Do we start? You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Kabir. I would like to introduce Professor Kabir before starting this session. Dr. Muhammad Kabir Hassan is a professor of finance in the Department of Economics and Finance in the University of New Orleans, USA. He currently holds 3 endowed chairs: Harbana Professor of Economics and Finance, Hancock Whitney Chair Professor in Business, and Bank One Professor in Business at the University of New Orleans. Professor Kabir is the winner of the 2016 Islamic Development Bank Prize in Islamic Banking and Finance. Professor Hassan received his BA in Economics and Mathematics from Gustavus Adolph College, Minnesota, USA, and MA in Economics and PhD in Finance from the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, USA, respectively. Professor Hassan is a financial economist with consulting, research, and teaching experience in development finance, monetary and capital market, Islamic finance, corporate finance, investments, monetary economics, macroeconomics, Islamic banking and finance, and international trade and finance. Professor Kabir is a member of accounting and auditing organization for the Islamic financial institutions, ethics and governance board, and education board. He is also a member of Oxford University SAP Business School Faith-Based Investing Initiative Advisory Board. Professor Hassan consulted the World Bank, IMF, Islamic Development Bank, African Development Bank, and many governmental and private organizations. Moreover, Professor Hassan has over 3 decades of teaching and research experience and has published over 350 research papers in top-tier journals like Journal of Banking and Finance, Journal of Corporate Finance, Pacific Basin Finance Journal, Quantitative Finance. He is frequent traveler. Professor Hassan has presented over 450 research papers at professional conferences and has delivered 240 invited papers, seminars. For his outstanding research and scholarly work, Professor Hassan has been recognized with Lifetime Achievement Award by UNO Research Council in 2019. Professor Hassan has supervised 64 PhD dissertations and acted as an external examiner for about 50 dissertations from the countries like Australia, New Zealand, USA, India, Bangladesh, Malaysia, and Canada. Furthermore, Professor Hassan has also edited and published 17 books. This is the brief introduction of Professor Kabir, and now session is with you, and you can share your screen. Thank you very much for your time, Professor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning in New Orleans and good evening in Pakistan and at different time zones around the world. Thank you, Imran, for inviting me. I see two of my good friends, Justin Paul and Sabri Boubaker. And I think both of them had set the stage for me to deviate a little bit. Professor Justin Paul talked about business processes, how pandemic would shape the new business processes and what's going to happen. And also Professor Sabri Boubaker has given a rundown what was happening in the financial markets and some important papers that has been published in academic journals. But I'm going to take a little detour and sort of bring the issue of Islamic social finance that can really help alleviate or tackle this pandemic-related crisis that we have seen in the last 2 years and still is continuing. So let me follow my slides so that I can keep my chain of thought. So poverty in Islam is a state where individuals could not fulfill one or more of the maqasid of Sharia or objectives of Sharia to promote the well-being of the people or the 5 basic human requirements of life. So the reason I'm bringing this issue of poverty is a central tenet in Islamic economic and financial management. And the pandemic has really made many millions of people below the poverty line. They're doing good, but after the pandemic, because of loss of job, lockdown, failure of business, a lot of people have become poor overnight. So Islamic social finance can say something in this regard. And there are 5 things that in the financial or economic management of Islam, the 5 things that you need to protect for any human being: your religion, yourself, your intellect, your future generation, and of course, you use your wealth. Now, this is a sort of poverty alleviation scheme in Islam. There are some measures that are positive and some are preventive and some are it should be, there's a mistake here. There are some social safety net or Islamic social finance. So when we talk about positive measure, there has to be a macro financial management by the government of the country. So the government of the country takes policies that allows the economy to grow, allows a system and processes in place so that the distribution of income is equally or proportionally distributed among the citizens, and there is an equal opportunity for every citizen in the country. So after you take the positive measure, the government also has to take preventive measures. For example, the government has to make sure policies and procedure in place so that the wealth is not concentrated into few hands. You know that there has been a lot of studies done that 50% of the world wealth is controlled by 1% of the population. If you look at in the context of Pakistan, you will see the same thing. There's a huge gap between have and have-nots. Only few people probably control the majority of the wealth of Pakistan and many other Muslim countries. So the control of ownership, the government has to make sure that the economic benefits and fruits are distributed across the citizens in different spectrum, different income group. And of course, very important, prevention of malpractice or corruption. I think corruption is a big issue in many Muslim countries and developing countries, and really government has to tackle this issue head on. Even after the positive measure and preventive measures, still people will be poor, and that's why the Islamic finance come into play. You know that zakat is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. So zakat will be collected in a proper way so that that can be channeled to the poverty alleviation. The charity has to be encouraged, and at the end of this thing, still there will be state responsibility for taking care of the vulnerable, weak, sick, and older generation. Now, when we talk about Islamic social finance, so there has to be a holistic approach. Islamic finance comprises of commercial finance, like a bank, for example, and Islamic social finance like zakat, sadaqah, waqf, which has to be combined and integrated to form an integrated Islamic commercial and social finance. And the idea of this thing came from one of our colleagues from Bangladesh, Professor Abdul Mannan, who recently died, I think 2 months ago. He established a bank called Islamic Social Bank, where he combined both aspects of Islamic finance, commercial finance, and social finance. A similar concept also exists in Indonesia. It's called Baitul Mal wa Tamwil, or BMT. It registers an Islamic cooperative combining Islamic social finance in its Baitul Mal division and Islamic commercial finance in its Baitul Tamwil division. So this is a sort of integration of Islamic social and commercial finance in BMT. So you have the Waqf social program, you have the cash Waqf, you have the asset liability of the companies and the financial real investment. So you have the program here, Baitul Mal, Baitul Tamwil, and you have the productive program, microfinancing, micro takaful, you have training, embassy development. So this is a sort of integrated social program developed under the framework of Islamic social finance and commercial finance. So the IRCFC and BMT can be illustrated in the previous figure. The Baitul Mal, as the certified zakat administrator, Amil, collects and manages zakat, infaq, and sadaqah, ZIS, in this figure. Funds from members, employees, and the surrounding community, and subsequently uses these funds for their designated purposes through various consumptive and productive programs, including training, technical assistance, and Kabir Hassan training to develop zakat recipients, especially the poor and needy, into self-sufficient micro-enterprises. Now, Baitul Mal, as a certified Waqf administrator, would collect direct and indirect cash Waqf and deposit funds into the Baitul Tamwil. Direct cash Waqf is used according to its intended purpose to build social facility of asset X, such as building an Islamic school, hospital, or mosque, or to accomplish or establish productive financial and real asset Y, such as investment in certain type of financial or real assets. So if you go back, so here we're talking about X plus Y. Then Indirect cash work-off is used to extend commercial microfinancing to members for developing their micro enterprises or other purposes. And to mitigate risk, work-off investment can be insured by micro takaful. And profits from cash work-off investment are used partly to fund social programs, while the other part of the profits is reinvested in cash work-off. So Indonesian Islamic Bank Act 21 of 2008 allows Islamic banks to manage Islamic social funds, like including zakat, infaq, sadaqah, and other Islamic social funds by established Baitul Mal. Some Islamic banks in Indonesia have already established Baitul Mal, such as Bank Muamalat Indonesia, Bank Sharia Mandiri, and Bank PNI. In addition, Islamic banks could collect cash waqf and channel it to waqf institutions. At the macro level, sound and strong Islamic financial institutions, including Islamic banks, Islamic rural banks, IMF, resulting from this development will contribute to the country's improved financial system stability overall. So this is a model that I have taken from Indonesia and also advocated by Dr. Askaria. So here is a framework that you can use Islamic social finance combating pandemic related problems. So if you look at on the top, COVID-19 pandemic health and economic crisis, there has been death, poverty, real and financial sector bankruptcy, well-being, which has been adequately explained by Professor Justin Paul and Sabri Boubaker. Then Islamic economic and finance, there is a holistic Islamic solution to this crisis and composite approach, poverty elevation Islamic perspective, integrated Islamic and social finance, and crisis management. We can learn from the Islamic history during the Umar ibn al-Khattab. There has been episode of famine and how the Honorable Caliph has tackled this issue. Now, Islamic social finance government support, you really need to save the lives now, quarantine, hospital, vaccine, health, lifestyle. You have to save the households. You have to have a cash transfer, public kitchen, scholarship, financing support. You have to save the business, financing support, capital support, subsidies, including tax and digital market. And of course, you have to also save the financial institutions, liquidity support, capital support, cash workout, and financial technology. So featured program, I'm going to talk about each of this category. Medical assistance, healthcare workup. The concept of workup can be used in this area. Social safety net, graduated program, financial assistance, business assistance, also cash workup, fintech, integrated Islamic cash workup, and Islamic social finance. So the recovery efforts could be divided into 4 groups, as I said. Save lives, including quarantine, hospital, vaccine, healthy lifestyle. Save household, save business, and save financial institutions. Now, the featured program that we talk about has, there are 4 types: save lives, household, business, and save financial institutions. In times of COVID-19 pandemic, health crisis has impacted on the economic finance in almost all levels of the society, especially the poor, vulnerable group, poor informal group, and micro and small business group, as well as financial institutions, especially microfinance institutions. And dealing with economic and financial crisis and Islamic perspective must be addressed holistically, including Islamic commercial finance, as I said before, Islamic social finance, and government policy within the greater holistic framework of poverty alleviation in Islam that I mentioned in first 2 slides, including macro and micro policies. Unfortunately, during this crisis, commercial finance, including Islamic commercial finance, have been affected. Therefore, in this time of crisis, ISF and government will take leading role in solving the problems. So let's talk about save lives. To stop the COVID-19 pandemic, the vaccine must be discovered by conducting intensive research. We have already vaccine right now, but there are different variants coming. So the vaccine, whatever we have created, we have to refine it so that the different variants can be taken care of by the improved version of the vaccine. So 2 feature program, which will be discussed further, is the medical and healthcare worker, medical assistance. The busiest sector in this pandemic time is healthcare service providers to provide promotive, preventive, and curative programs to the community. With the surge in COVID-19 patients, all necessary programs, equipment, and medications are required to promote healthy lifestyle, prevent transmission of virtues, and to cure infected patients, as well as to provide incentives for medical personnel such as doctors, nurses, and medics. So the healthcare workup, with the surge of COVID-19, the capacity of hospitals and hospital beds must be increased immediately. And it has been almost a year, and the different government has taken different actions to meet the needs of the new hospital or the hospital expansion. Emergency hospital could be built in a very short time by the government through its healthcare programs. An emergency hospital could also be built by social institutions, especially by walk-up, by raising walk-up. And two types of healthcare workup are possible to be built by the workup institutions, namely the social healthcare workup and integrated social productive healthcare workup, while productive workup could be built in normal economic condition. So if you look at the social healthcare workup, emergency hospital built using social healthcare workup scheme started by workup institute to raise workup, including land and cash from Waqif, and then collaborate with the contractor to build the emergency hospital. The hospital will be managed by the Waqf institution itself or collaborate with professional institution to better manage the hospital, financed by zakat, infaq from the muzakki or zakat payer, and the munfiq, the infaq donor, collected by the zakat institution of this Waqf institution that also registered as amil or zakat. The medical services provided by emergency hospital to Maruf Alaihi or everybody as a beneficiary would be free for everybody which specialize to treat COVID-19 patients. So there is a picture of this framework. So you have the Waqf, they provide land and cash. You have the Muzaki Monofik, they provide, the Waqf and also this infaq or sadaka. There is a Nazir or Amil. Then you do a contract with the contractor. They build the construction emergency hospital. The emergency hospital was taken by the Nazir or the third-party management, and they provide the benefits mauku for alaihi or beneficial to everyone. Now, we talk about integrated social productive healthcare. The emergency hospital could also be built using integrated social commercial healthcare workup, where the Nazir is the Waqf institution. To cover the initial operational cost, the Nazir could also raise infaq until profit generated by productive Waqf could cover operational cost of the emergency hospital. So there is a framework here. So you have the Waqif, you have the land and cash, you have the customer. So if you take 1A, then you have 1B infaq or munafiq. And then if you look at 3A, the Nazir makes a contract with the contractor, and the contractor construction of the emergency hospital. And this the contractor, the commercial work of facility. So that could be emergency hospital A and B, the facility, the management has been transferred to the work of facility. The goods and services will be provided to customers. And also on the other hand, so you see there are two sides to it. Work of use for productive purposes, and the profit that will be generated will be work of plus other types of financial investment into these things will be shared with the customers. And also there will be the social aspect of it or markup for alaihi. Now, second one is you need to save the household. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused many people lost their jobs, especially in informal sector, micro and small enterprises and tourism sector, including Islamic tourism, such as Hajj and Umrah travel agencies. Government support is needed to cover this basic needs support, which could also be provided by the Zakat institutions. You also remember you talked about the very beginning, the social safety net by the government. Basic needs support could fall under the social safety net program of the government and Zakat program of Zakat institutions. And the social safety net of the Zakat programs for the poor, Mustahiq, should cover zarurat, the needs or the necessity, food, clothing, shelter, and worship, and haziyat, asiyat, needs, education, healthcare, transportation to meet the basic needs security. Now we also talk about people really don't, a person with integrity or with pride does not really want your um, handout. I mean, they want to stand on their own feet. So there has to be, and the poverty elevation or this in the Islamic social welfare program, how can you make these people self-employed or stand on their own feet? So in this program, the poor would be gathered every week and provide training to become micro-entrepreneur, Kabir Hassan financing in several stages to start and expand their micro business, technical assistance to ensure that their businesses would be running well to generate profits so that finally they can fulfill their basic needs and at the same time also accumulate savings to create assets for their micro enterprises. If they successfully complete all the stages, they have graduated from the poverty to enter commercial microfinancing from Islamic microfinance institution such as Baitul Mal, Wal Tamil or BMT as it exists in Indonesia. So here is a proposed graduation program. You have the consumptive program, which may zakat money will take care of it. There the necessity and haziyat asiyat, the basic needs security. You have the training, Qardul Hassan financing. You provide technical assistance, and of course generating savings from there. So you can follow a model like Grameen Bank that exists in Bangladesh. So asset creation and the experience and what happens, the graduation will happen and they will eventually get into commercial MSc financing and micro and small sector industry will develop in this country. Remember this the micro enterprises are the largest employer of any country and an average number is 70 to 80% of employment generated by the micro and small enterprises. So we really need to look at this sector because they're devastated by this corona pandemic. Now, say business, COVID-19 pandemic has affected all businesses, excluding micro and small, as I said, with dominated businesses in Indonesia and many other Muslim countries, including those traders in traditional markets exist in every village. Same thing exists in Pakistan as well. So financial assistance need to be provided and they have the similar program has been instituted in all the developed countries including the United States as Professor Sabri has mentioned. So most MSCs receive loan financing from conventional or Islamic microfinance institution such as conventional Islamic cooperative, conventional and Islamic rural bank. In the time of pandemic, they could not pay their debt financing since they could not sell their goods and services or their sales plummeted so that they faced possible bankruptcy and entangled in debt financing. For those MSCs entangled in debt, and some financial assistance could be provided to help. First, the MSs could have loan financing, extension, relaxation, or restructuring, and many countries have followed this practice. Second, the MS is considered as Garimin, could be categorized as Mustahik and could be eligible to be assisted with zakat to pay off their debt. And in times of COVID-19 pandemic, most MSs also experience depletion of the liquidity and even their capital since limited income from their declining business had forced them to sometimes use their liquidity and capital to fulfill their basic needs. So here is an example, various financial assistance for MSCs. You have Muzaki, Monfik, Wakov, 1, 2, 3, and also you can invite the philanthropic investor, those who believe in, social responsible investing. So you have the Baitul Mal, you have the Baitul Tamil. So there is a commercial sector here, and there is a social sector. So you can attack all different types of micro and small enterprises. Now, the lockdown has made the demand from households and the supply of goods and services from SS, MSCs could not be met and distracted the economic surplus. One effective solution to circumvent lockdown is setting up digital markets And you know, the digital finance or fintech has become very significant during this lockdown, including every traditional market to break the wall between demand and supply so that the demand of households could meet the supply of MSCs, while the delivery could be done by traditional online delivery or fintech online delivery system. So the digital market could range from the simplest form of phone number list to a sophisticated digital e-commerce. So if you see digital market to circumvent, so if the households, they need, you know, their regular goods and services to survive, MSCs need to sell them. So demand, the lockdown has put a barricade. So we really need to, you know, investment, and this pandemic has really taught us to develop an alternative supply chain model, and many countries are investing into this thing, and mostly the developed countries because they have the resources, but the developing countries has to follow a similar type of model. Now, finally coming to the save the financial institutions. Financial institutions, conventional Islamic, have been severely hit by the COVID-19 pandemic from assets and liability sides, and the lockdown has introduced a wall between demand and supply, causing a contraction in demand and supply of goods and services. And the wave of non-performing loan and financing have affected the asset side of CFI, commercial finance and Islamic financial institutions. So it affected all types of financial institutions, especially CF, MFI, IMF have also extended loan financing to MSC, commercial microfinance and Islamic microfinance. All financial institutions were in dire need of financial assistance. The CFI and RFI could get help from lender of last resort. I'm talking the central bank, while the commercial microfinance, conventional microfinance institution and Islamic microfinance did not have the lender of last resort and could not get help from the central bank, which made CMFI and IMFI fell in the brink of collapse. The government or the financial authority of CMFI and IMFI has to act as the lender of last resort with financial assistance to save them from massive bankruptcy. And some proposed reforms include the development of cash waqf, the adoption of financial technology, and the adoption of integrated Islamic commercial and social finance. So talking about cash waqf, you're familiar with this concept. The development of cash waqf in Islamic microfinance means that IMFI registered a Nazir of cash collects indirect cash waqf intensively, which could be placed in the liabilities as investment waqf deposits or waqf equity. There are plenty of benefits to the introduction of cash waqf, the liability side of the Islamic microfinance institution balance sheet. First, the nature of waqf, where the principle should be maintained, should not be decreased, would gradually solve the problem of dependency to external funding, such as dependency from Islamic bank for funding. Second, the perpetual nature of cash waqf would eliminate the problem of mismatch, since the term of financing in asset side would always shorter than perpetual term of cash waqf liability side. Third, the nature of cash waqf, which belongs to God Almighty, would never be withdrawn, which would eliminate the problem of liquidity as well as decrease the cost of funds. And finally, the placement of cash waqf and cash equity would improve the ability of Islamic microfinance institutions to expand, as well as would decrease the cost of funds and would make the cost of financing cheaper. So if I want to show you with a picture, if you look at a balance sheet of an Islamic microfinance institution or BMT, you have the cash, you have the bank deposits, you have the receivable, financing, and the fixed asset. Liability side, you have the Wadia, Mudaraba deposits, Mudaraba investment, Islamic bank financing. You have the capital. Now, after introducing cash waqf, so you'll have all those things here, but will be replaced cash, bank deposit, receivable, financing. You'll have a long-term investment, which will be done by the waqf capital. You have the fixed asset, the capital originally issued by the IMFI or the BMT. And the liability side, you have the Wadia Mudaraba, but you will replace the Islamic bank financing with long-term waqf investment. Now coming to fintech, The emergence of financial technology has disrupted financial services, posing threat and opportunity for financial institutions even before pandemic, including Islamic financial institution and Islamic microfinance institution and Islamic social finance. The fintech could help IMFI, including BMT, to attract an external investor to invest directly, while fintech could also be adopted in Islamic social finance using crowdfunding, peer-to-peer, social to collect zakat, infaq, and waqf. The adoption of fintech by IMFI BMT would further strengthen the liabilities and further decrease the problem of liquidity and mismatch. And the fintech could be adopted by Islamic microfinance institution or BMT or micro fintech in many different ways. And the fintech company Apex in Indonesia could become a provider of fintech services as digital banking, payment, P2P, financing, P2P social, as well as e-commerce. So adoption of fintech by Islamic Finance Institution, you have the fintech company, you have the IMF of the association, the Apex. So this is a model I'm taking from Indonesia. They're the front runner in this sector and really growing very rapidly. So the member, investor, you have the online, you have the Muzaki, you have the Waqif Munafik, sorry, not Munafik, Munfik, you have the MSC of the real sector offline, you have the Mustahik and Mawkuf Alaihi. Now, balance sheet of IMF BMT after adopting the micro fintech. So same thing, it is getting improving. So the financing, long-term work of investment, long-term investment, work of capital and capital, but this balance sheet or the business model or process will be more efficient with the adoption of fintech or providing financing in terms of supply chain, also in terms of capital requirement or raising fund for the Islamic microfinance institution. So adoption of Islamic commercial sector and micro fintech by Islamic microfinance institutions. So as I said, you have the zakat, infaq, and the direct cash waqf. You have the online fintech, the indirect cash waqf investment deposits. Fintech, you have the Baitul Mal, that is the social aspect of this Mustahik, Maquf Alaihi, and Baitul Tamul. This is the commercial aspect and which is used to support MSC and the real sector. So you're combining both Islamic social finance and commercial finance together in order to provide financing to businesses so that they can develop, they can survive, they can grow, and also can hire more people and who will have more income. That will be feedback or chain reaction, loop back to the economy, and economy will grow. This model would be able to participate in poverty alleviation, MSC development, improving well-being, as well as increase holistic financial inclusion, combining social inclusion and financial inclusion. So this is a framework that I have borrowed from Sukio and Galetti and also modified by Ascaria. So what happened when there was, so it started as a supply shock, right? So when the supply shock happened, that, you know, everything was interrupted. So ASO went to ASO1, and that also created a demand shock. So demand curve also declined from AD0 to AD1, AD2. So economy was contracting during the lockdown and pandemic period. The pandemic affected the aggregate supply and aggregate demand curves. And because of the stay-at-home program, it led to a significant decrease in the amount of production, which caused the AS1 curve shift to AS2. So AS1 shift to AS2. Furthermore, this program led to a decrease in demand, and consequently, AD1 curve shifted to AD2. So the production decreased more from Q1 to Q2. So there's a chain reaction. AS1 went to AS2 and AD1 went to AD2. So original equilibrium was Q0 production, and production contracted Q1 and production contracted even more at Q2. So curve of the further economic impact. So there has been, because of this, so this area, the colored area that you see, that it was the social or economic, disruption or the value of the economic disruption that happened in the society. Not only has COVID-19 caused a decline in real economic fundamentals, but also a kind of barrier wall between supply and demand. It also caused a contraction in supply, which led to a contraction of demand and resulted in the elimination of economic surplus, the area, the colored area in this diagram. So how can the Islamic social finance can impact this this framework? So you have original AS0. Now, because of this introduction of Islamic social finance or injection of capital from different Islamic social finance along with commercial finance is going to shift the AS0 to AS1, and that will shift further to AS2, and that will also subsequently create a chain reaction in the demand side. As a result, the policy needed for economic recovery is one that can reverse the destruction of economic surplus. When the mustahik receives zakat, he can spend to meet his basic needs, and this leads to the shifting of the curve from AD0 to AD1. This will also lead to an increase in demand, which will meet an increase in supply. Muzaki, who has surplus assets, will invest in the real sector to meet the increasing demand so that the supply increases and the curve shifts from AS0 to AS1. So continuing to pay zakat and disbursement will cause the demand curve continuously with an increase from AD1 to AD2. Likewise, the supply curve will shift from AS1 to AS2. So what is happening? The initial equilibrium was Q0, so equilibrium will increase from Q0 to Q1, and that will be a sort of chain reaction, a multiplier effect. The continuous movement will gradually increase the GDP or the per capita GDP that would lead, improve the welfare and prosperity of society and reduce the inequality gap. So this is what I mentioned before. So because of these things, whatever was destroyed because of pandemic, the curve will shift towards the right. So you'll AD0 will go to AD1, AD2. Chain reaction is S0, AS1, AS2. This colored area will be recovered and even will be surpassed because of this inclusion of Islamic social finance into this scheme. So the MSs would be restarted, cranked up, and continuously expanding with the expansion of demand to meet, since the wall between demand and supply has been circumvented by digital market. Also, the increase in demand and supply of goods and services would cause accelerating economic recovery. The final condition of economic Islamic social finance intervention is exactly the opposite curve of further economic impact due to 19, since the socio-economic development processed by Islamic social finance instrument depicted and G's WAF intervention in the demand and supply curve. And the final condition of the economy with Islamic social finance intervention would exactly reverse the economic destruction process depicted by the curve of supply and demand shift and curve of further economic due to COVID-19. So what I mean here, I was talking about that was a destruction of economic surplus or economic value loss because of pandemic, and that will exactly reversed with the introduction of Islamic social finance into the process. So the poverty as a result would be reduced, unemployment would increase, welfare would increase, and the equitable distribution of income and would also be improved. So finally, the proposed solution combining poverty alleviation, integrated Islamic commercial social finance, and Umar bin Abdul Khattab approach, the policies he has taken could include save lives, including medical assistance and healthcare worker, save households, including social safety net and graduation program, save business, including financial assistance and business assistance, especially digital market, and finally, save financial institutions, include development of cash workup, the adoption of fintech, and the adoption of integrated Islamic commercial and social finance. That's all, my dear friends. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, dear Professor Kabir. It was a wonderful session and very insightful. Uh, if any of our participant has question, he or she is welcome to ask. Raise the hand. Then our keynote will be answer your queries.
I think all the Pakistanis are tired because they have been listening for a long time. They are also hungry. It's
Yeah.
almost dinner time. I mean, they have started dinner an hour ago. They continue.
Yes. Yes. Okay, dear Professor, I would love to thank you, and I will request you to conclude the session, please.
Okay, so actually, it was a very nice combination. Professor Justin Poe started with business practices, the model, and from his long experience into the area, how the pandemic can be tackled. He also brought some fact and figures. And then it was followed by the presentation of Sabri Boubaker. He is a very well-known researcher in the academic research area. He has brought from the academic angle of it. He also looked at different policies and perspective that is taken by different countries and how that impacted the financial market. And finally, I try to find a balance, bringing the Islamic social finance into the picture. And I have shown how that can be used in order to tackle the pandemic related crisis and destruction that happened to the, to people, business, life, everything that we have when you live in our daily life. So hopefully that all three presentation will help the participants, and they will also encourage them to get into this type of research and bring this knowledge creation a step forward. So with that, I want to say thank you to everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Okay, brother, and all participants, I'm thankful for your time, and hope we'll be having very outstanding sessions in our preceding weeks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor, for your time, and thank participants for your valuable time. God bless you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Salam.
Sabri, you're there?
I think Professor Sabri left the session.
Left. Okay. Thank you. Bye now.
Okay. God bless you. Khuda Hafiz.